It was a dark night at a quiet beach resort near Mumbai. Cool breeze was blowing across the water, but it did not feel romantic. Instead, the air felt heavy, as if a warning of something horrifying to come. Near the shore, a young couple, Jaya and Dev, were having a bitter argument. Jaya was deeply frustrated. "There is no point in expecting anything from you anymore," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "It's completely pointless." Dev tried his best to calm her down. "I'm trying, Jaya, but you only see my faults." "Oh, so now it's my fault?" Jaya snapped. "Why I am even arguing with you? It's total waste of time." Without waiting for his response, Jaya turned around and walked away angrily toward the dark beach. They called out and followed close behind her. A little further down the shore, a group of 6 people sat in a circle. From a distance, it looked like a normal campfire, but as Jaya walked closer, she realized it was something else entirely. They were performing a strange ritual. In center, a psychic woman covered in beaded necklace and bracelets were chanting on fire. Suddenly, as Jaya passed by, the psychic stopped chanting and stood up. She felt a sudden shift in the air, a heavy, dark energy. Without even looking at Jaya, the woman stared straight ahead into the darkness and spoke. "Do not go further, girl. It's not safe." Jaya stopped. The woman's powerful voice startled her, but because she was already furious, she refused to listen. "Mind your business, lady," Jaya replied sharply. Just then Dev got up to them. He stopped beside Jaya, looking confused by the strange gathering. "It is my business to warn people of danger," the psychic said. She turned her head and looked directly at Jaya for the first time. Her intense gaze made Jaya feel deeply uneasy. The psychic slowly walked over, circling Jaya like a shadow. "I can see a deep darkness around you," the woman whispered. "A darkness that will pull you down, send you to the ground, and take what is yours." The psychic then stopped and looked at Dev with a deep suspicion. She seemed to wonder if this dangerous, dark energy was actually coming from him. Jaya stood frozen for a moment, letting the words sink in, but her anger quickly returned. She convinced herself that the woman was just a fraud trying to scare her into buying something. "Stop it!" Jaya shouted. "You can't trick me into buying your lucky stones or rituals. Get away from me!" Jaya broke into a run, heading deeper into the darkness of the beach. They grabbed her hand, begging her to stop, but she violently ripped her arm away. "Leave me alone!" she screamed, running over faster. The psychic stood by the fire, silently watching Jaya's shadow disappear into the night. Jaya kept running blindly until she crossed into a complete isolated part of the beach. In her anger, she missed a sign that read, "Restricted Area." The locals avoided this spot because of a terrifying rumor. Many claimed to have seen a vengeful ghost of a dead fisherman haunting the shore. Exhausted and breathless, Jaya finally stopped. She sat down on the sand alone, crying bitterly as the waves crashed in front of her. Her mind was flooded with angry thoughts about her relationship. Suddenly, she felt a movement behind her. She quickly turned around to look, but it was too late. A figure loomed over her, swinging a heavy shawl. The attack was so fast and violent that Jaya didn't even have time to scream. As her body hit the sand, the rumors of the fisherman's ghost were no longer just a story, they were real. In the very same resort, on the exact same night, 3 girls, Pooja, Divya, and Manisha, were having a party in that very same restricted area on the beach. They had set up a beautiful, picture perfect spot on the sand. There were wine bottles, elegant glasses, a cake, chocolates, flowers, and burning candles. They were laughing, posing for a photo, and recording videos using a phone mounted on a tripod. Manisha opened a bottle of wine and poured it into their glasses. They cheered and took a sip. Manisha immediately started teasing Divya because Divya was getting married soon. Manisha tickled her playfully, causing Divya to jump, and dark red wine spilled all over her dress. Oh no, Manisha, look what you did! Divya cried out, quickly grabbing a tissue. This dress is a gift from my husband. Manisha smirked. Husband? Oh, baby, he's just your fiancé. You are just trying to marry him, aren't you? Manisha and Pooja laughed, high-fiving each other. Divya did not find it funny. You can tease me later. I need to clean this right now. Let's go back to our room. Come on, Manisha stopped her. We just started the party. Look, there is a washroom right over there. We can just use that. It was an old abandoned washroom. Because this was a restricted zone, nobody used it anymore. Pooja looked at the dark building and shuddered. I don't think that is a good idea. Look at it. It looks horrifying. We already sneaked into a restricted area and now you want to do this? Manisha rolled her eyes. When will you stop being so scared? You can stay here alone if you want. We will be back in 5 minutes. Pooja panicked. No, no, don't leave me alone. The vetter told me today that the ghost of dead fisherman wanders around this restricted area. I'm coming with you. Three girls walked over to the old building. Manisha flipped the switch and the lights hummed to life. Surprisingly, the washroom was clean inside. Divya quickly washed the stain out of her dress. But just as they turned to leave, a dark shadow passed quickly around the washroom door. The girls froze. They gripped each other's hands tightly, their hearts racing. Slowly, step by step, they walked out of the washroom. The moment they stepped outside, the washroom lights suddenly went out on their own. It was a pitch black, and the heavy washroom door slammed shut with a loud bang. Pooja and Divya screamed in terror. Don't worry, it's just the wind, Manisha said, her voice shaking as she tried to stay calm. They turned around to run back to their party, but Pooja suddenly let out another piercing scream. What happened? Manisha asked. Pooja was shaking so badly that she couldn't speak. With trembling hands, she pointed out toward the dark sea. Far out on the water, a small boat was floating. A man was standing perfectly still on it, holding a heavy shovel in one hand and a sharp fishing hook in the other. See, I told you, Pooja cried. It's the fisherman's spirit. Suddenly, the terrifying figure on the boat began moving directly towards the shore, straight toward them. All three girls screamed at the top of their lungs. They sprinted back to their party setup, grabbed their bags and phones in the wild panic, and ran away into the night as fast as they could. The next morning, Divya, Pooja, and Manisha woke up with a terrible headache. They were still wearing the same clothes from the night before, and they felt awful. To feel better, they walked down to the beach resort and ordered some fresh lemon juice. But the beach was not quiet. A big crowd of people was standing near the water, whispering in shock. The three girls walked closer to see what was happening. On the sand, there was a body covered in white cloth. It was Jaya. She was dead. The CIB team was already there, blocking off the area. Agent Kritika, a sharp and serious officer, stood over the body. Her assistant, Officer Atul Shah, carefully moved Jaya's head to show Kritika a large, deep wound on the back of her skull. Someone hit her from behind with something heavy. Atul said. It happened very fast. Jaya's husband, Dev, was sitting on the sand next to the body, crying loudly. Kritika stepped closer to him. Where did you see your wife last? Dev wiped his eyes. Last night. We had a huge fight. She got very angry and ran toward the beach. I tried to follow her, but it was too dark. Even the psychic woman on the beach tried to warn her. Kritika asked, a psychic? What did she say? She said she saw a heavy, dark energy around Jaya. They whispered, shaking with fear. Kritika did not believe in ghosts or magic. She turned to the resort watchman. Go find this psychic and bring her to me right now. While Kritika was talking to Dev, Detective Tapan stood a few feet back, quietly watching everything. He was not looking at the wound or the crying husband. His eyes were locked on Jaya's neck. She was wearing a simple chain with a large diamond pendant. Tapan walked up to Dev. This pendant looked very expensive. Where did she get it? Dev swallowed hard. Jaya's mother owns a famous luxury jewelry company. Jaya just finished a massive business deal, so her mother gave her this unique diamond pendant as a gift. Tapan looked at the diamond closely. This is worth 1 million, Tapan thought to himself. The killer did not touch it. This was not a robbery. This murder was planned. Suddenly, Jaya's mother and her brother Manoj came to the place. When the mother saw the white sheet over her daughter, she fainted and fell. Manoj caught her quickly. Kritika threw some cool water on her face to wake her up and helped her sit on a chair. Manoj ran to the restaurant and brought back a glass of sweet lemonade. She has low blood pressure, Manoj explained, trying to give her the drink, but the mother pushed it away. Dev took the glass. Ma, please, drink this for Jaya, he begged. Finally, she took few sips. The crying mother looked at Kritika. Who did this to my girl? We are investigating, Kritika said gently. Right now, we only know she was attacked from behind. The watchman found her body in the restricted area of the beach. In the back of the crowd, Pooja, Divya, and Manisha froze. The words restricted area hit them like a shockwave. Their faces turned completely pale. They instantly remembered the dark shadow, the locked door, and the horrifying fisherman on the boat from last night. They looked at each other, trembling with fear. They tried to act normal, but Detective Tapan was watching the crowd. He saw sudden terror in the three girls' eyes. He noticed their shaking hands. Those girls know something, Tapan noted in his mind. They are hiding in a dark secret. Just then, the watchman returned with a psychic woman. She was wearing heavy beaded necklace and walked with creepy calmness. She looked at Jaya's body and muttered a quiet prayer. Then she looked at Kritika. I told her, the psychic said. Last night, I was doing a ritual on the beach. I felt a dangerous, evil energy coming from her. I warned her to turn back, but she did not listen. Kritika got angry. How did you know she was going to die? The psychic smiled cold, mysterious smile. I can see things other cannot. In fact, during my meditation this morning, I saw another vision. The dark energy is still hungry. Tonight it will attack again. Another person will die right here in this restaurant. The crowd gasped and stepped back in fear. Kritika stepped right into the psychic's face. Listen to me, lady. Knowing about the murder before it happens does not make you a psychic. In the eyes of the law, it makes you a prime suspect. Vittal, arrest her. Officer Vittal Deshmukh pulled out heavy iron handcuffs, put them on the psychic, and led her away to the police car. The psychic did not fight. She just kept smiling. Rutika turned to the resort manager who was sweating and shaking. Why is that beach area restricted anyway? What is back there? The manager swallowed hard. It is because the ghost of the dead fisherman, ma'am. The locals say his spirit walks on the sand with a shovel and he hurts anyone who goes there. Rutika looked at Tapan and shook her head in frustration. What absolute nonsense! A ghost with a shovel? Tapan did not say a word. He looked out at the ocean and smiled and headed towards car. He knew the killer was not a ghost. The killer was a real person of flesh and blood, and Tapan was already on their trail. The car ride was completely silent. Tapan kept his eyes on the road as he drove, but he could feel the heavy anger coming from Kritika sitting right next to him. She stared out the passenger window, her mind racing with thoughts about the case. I think we should go to the office of that jewelry brand, Tapan said, breaking the long silence. The one Jaya's mother owns? Kritika did not even look at him. No, we need to question that psychic first. Tapan glanced at her with a calm smile. What's the matter with the psychic? Do you really think she is involved in the murder? I actually thought her little show was quite fun. But you seem to take it a bit personally back there. Kritika pulled out her sunglasses and slipped them on, hiding her eyes. It's pure stupidity, she snapped. She knew about the murder before anyone else. In our line of work, that doesn't make her magician. It makes her the prime suspect. She also predicted a second murder. Remember? Tapan reminded her. She said someone else will die at the restaurant tonight. Kritika's jaw tightened. Yes, which is exactly why the CIB team is going to hide and watch that resort tonight. Until then, she stays locked up in her custody where she can't hurt anyone. Well, since she's already locked up and going nowhere, we can question her later, Tapan said. Let's check out the mother's jewelry office first. There might be a motive hiding there. Before Kritika could argue, Tapan turned the steering wheel sharply, spinning the car down the road towards the jewelry headquarters. Tapan and Kritika arrived at the grand, luxurious main office of the jewelry brand Jaya's mother owned. The halls were quiet, filled with glittering displays of diamonds and gold. They went straight to Jaya's personal assistant, who looked deeply shaken and stressed by tragic news. Our company was drowning in very heavy debt recently, the personal assistant explained. It all happened after Jaya ma'am left us. But everyone begged her to come back. When she finally did, she launched a brilliant new project. It is doing incredibly well, and we are finally recovering. Tapan leaned forward, his sharp eyes focused. Why did she leave the company in the first place? The assistant lowered her voice, looking around to make sure no one else was listening. Manoj sir wanted to sell the company while its value was still high. But Jaya ma'am had a completely different vision of the brand. They had a massive, explosive fight over it, and she walked away in anger. The moment she left, the company's valuation crashed. That is when their mother, Sudha ma'am, stepped in, brought Jaya back, and cancelled the entire plan to sell. Tapan nodded slowly, processing the information. How many shares do Jaya and Manoj own in this company? None at all, the assistant replied instantly. Sudha ma'am is the sole owner of everything. Tapan and Kritika thanked her and walked out of the building. As they reached the car, Tapan turned to Kritika with knowing smirk. See, I told you we would find real leads at the office. Kritika crossed her arms, looking unconvinced. What exactly do you mean? You weren't listening carefully, Tapan teased. opening the driver's side door. Your mind is completely occupied by the psychic. Think about it. Jaya's brother Manoj desperately wanted to sell the company for massive fortune. Because of Jaya, his plan failed completely. That is huge financial motive, and it makes him our first real suspect. No, Kritika argued firmly, sliding into the passenger seat. The first suspect is still the psychic. She literally knew about the murder before even it happened. Tapan laid out a loud laugh as he started the car. Oh my god, Kritika, that psychic has turned you into a psycho. At least let's check Manoj's location at the time of the murder. Kritika sighed, adjusting her glasses. Fine, I'll do that. I'm not denying Manoj as a suspect. Tapan hit the gas and the car sped off into the traffic, heading straight back towards CIB office. Inside the resort room, panic had completely taken over. Pooja, Divya, and Manisha were throwing their clothes into suitcases as fast as they could. After seeing Jaya's dead body and hearing about the murder, they had only one thought: escape. They needed to leave the resort immediately. But as Divya was zipping up her bag, she suddenly froze. She looked down at her bare hands. My ring, Divya whispered, her face turning pale. My ring! It's gone! It was her precious engagement ring. Pooja and Manisha stopped packing and stared at her. Within seconds, the room became a chaotic mess. They ripped the sheets off the bed, dumped out their bags, and searched every dark corner of the room. Nothing. They rushed out of the room and hurried down to the beach restaurant, keeping their heads down. They searched under the tables and around the chairs where they drank their lemon juice earlier, but the ring was nowhere to be found. Divya's eyes filled with tears. I know where it is, she said, her voice shaking. It must have slipped off my finger last night on the restricted beach when we were running for our lives. Pooja shook her head rapidly. No way! We can't go back there. The CIB officers are all over the place. If they see us searching the crime scene, they will catch us. Manisha thought for a moment, her mind racing. We can't go now during the day. We have to go back at night when it's dark and everyone is asleep. Pooja stepped back, her eyes wide with terror as she remembered the creepy fisherman on the boat. Are you crazy? I'm never going back to that horrifying place at night. We shouldn't go. Let's just leave it. We can't just leave it, Pooja, Manisha snapped fiercely. Think about it. If the CIB finds an engagement ring at the murder scene, they will track it back to Divya. We will all go to jail as murder suspects. The brutal truth hit them hard. Leaving the ring behind was just as dangerous as going back for it. Divya wiped her tears and straightened her back. I have to get it. I am going tonight. I am coming with you, Manisha said firmly. Pooja shook her head, shrinking back into the corner of the room. I can't do it. I am staying in the hotel room. The plan was set. Divya and Manisha decided to risk everything to find the ring in the pitch black darkness of the night. But the girls had no idea they were walking straight into a dangerous trap. They thought avoiding CIB was their only problem. They completely forgot the psychic's terrifying warning. The dark energy is hungry and someone else will die tonight. By deciding to go back to that forbidden shore in the dead of night, they had no idea that the terrifying trap was already waiting for them, and the next scream on that beach would be their own. Inside the busy CIB office, the team gathered around the investigation table. Officer Atul looked up from the medical reports, his face filled with worry. Boss, Atul said, I'm afraid to say this, but this case is taking a very strange direction. We found some unusual marks on Jaya's body. It looks like she was scratched by a sharp, pointy object, like. Atul stopped talking. He looked at Agent Kritika and swallowed hard. He knew what he was about to say would make her furious. Like what, Atul? Speak up, Kritika demanded. Like a fishing hook, Atul muttered. Tapan immediately burst out laughing, looking at Kritika's face. Oh, so the fisherman's spirit really did kill her. The resort watchman was telling the truth. Tapan could see Kritika boiling with anger from inside. She absolutely hated ghost stories and superstitions, and more importantly, that psychic. What absolute rubbish! Kritika snapped, slamming her hand on the desk. There is no such thing as ghost. Someone is clearly taking advantage of this local legend to scare people and misguide our investigation. Trying to calm the tension, Atul quickly changed the subject back to the facts. The medical examiner says the time of the death was last night between 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Good, that's useful, Kritika said, tapping her pen. We can check the resort's CCTV cameras for that exact time. Officer Vittal shook his head grimly. I already checked the footage, ma'am. There is absolutely nothing. The cameras near entrance of the restricted beach area went completely dead after 8 p.m. Kritika frowned. Why? I asked the security manager. Vittal explained nervously. He told me the exact same story. He claims that whenever the fisherman's spirit walked the beach, the CCTV cameras get damaged. He even said one camera exploded in the past. Kritika stood frozen for a moment, completely speechless at how ridiculous it sounded. While Kritika was frustrated, Detective Tapan was thoroughly enjoying the strange testimonies. But suddenly a sharp thought crossed Tapan's mind, and his smile faded. Think about it, Tapan said, pulling everyone's attention. If she was killed right next to the water, why didn't the killer just throw her body into the sea? For any criminal, it is much easier to let the ocean wash away the evidence. Why leave her on the sand where she could be easily found? Kritika looked at him, listening intently. Tapan continued. It means the killer wanted us to find the body quickly. The killer is someone who benefits directly from the world knowing that Jaya is dead. Right on cue, Vittal dropped a massive piece of information. There is one more thing I discovered. Jaya had a massive life insurance policy worth 100 crore rupees. And guess who the sole nominee is? Her husband, Dev. Tapan smiled sharply, snapping his fingers. There you go. We have our second potential suspect. Kritika immediately turned to Vittal. Did you check where the husband was during the time of the murder? Yes, ma'am, Vittal replied. He has a strong alibi. Right after their fight, he joined the crowd on the beach where the psychic was doing her ritual. He stayed there with that group until dawn. Multiple witnesses confirm he never left their side. Kritika's eyes narrowed. Oh, that makes him even more suspicious. That psychic and the husband could easily be working together. She fakes a vision and he gets the money. Tapan shook his head. Atul, find out the exact location of the brother Manoj during the time of the murder, Kritika ordered. She then turned back to Vittal with serious expression. We have to be fully prepared for our stakeout tonight. Let's head back to the resort. If that psychic's prediction is true, the killer will strike the resort tonight. It was pitch black when Divya and Manisha sneaked back into the restricted area of the beach. The air was freezing cold, and the loud crashing of the waves made them jump at every sound. Their hands were shaking with pure fear. They knew they shouldn't be here. If the fisherman's spirit came back, they were doomed. The psychic's terrifying prediction that another death would happen tonight kept echoing in their minds. In the dim moonlight, it was almost impossible to see. The girls dropped their knees on the damp sand. Divya began digging through the dirt slowly, her fingers trembling as she searched for any sign of cold. Manisha sat right next to her, looking around wildly into the shadows, trying to guard her back. Suddenly, Divya's fingers hit something hard. She pulled it out of the sand. It was her engagement ring. A rush of pure happiness washed over her. She smiled in relief and quickly slipped the ring back into her finger. But her joy lasted only a second. Suddenly, the air behind them felt heavy. A shadow fell over the sand. They realized someone was standing directly behind them. Both girls froze, too terrified to move a muscle. Their hearts pounded wildly in their chest. They didn't know who was waiting in the darkness. Was it the CIB catching them at the crime scene? Or was it the vengeful spirit of the dead fisherman? Slowly, with tears of terror in her eyes, Divya turned her head around to look up into the dark. And then she let out a piercing scream that cut straight through the dead silence of the night. When Divya and Manisha slowly turned around, their hearts stopped. Standing right behind them in the darkness were Agent Kritika and Officer Vittal. Their guns were drawn and pointed straight at the girls' faces. Don't move! CIB! Put your heads up! Vittal shouted. Terrified and weeping, the girls raised their hands. Kritika and Vittal marched them back to the brightly lit beach restaurant for questioning. Kritika slammed Divya's gold engagement ring onto the table. Explain this, Kritika commanded, her voice cold as ice. Why was your ring sitting right in the middle of the restricted murder scene? Divya began to shake, tears rolling down her cheeks. Ma'am, please listen to us. We didn't do anything wrong. We were just having a private party on the beach last night. Manisha quickly nodded. Yes, we drank some wine and I accidentally spilled it on Divya's dress. We went into the old abandoned washroom so she could clean it. But when we come out, the lights went off on their own and the door slammed shut. And then we saw him, Divya cried out, gripping Manisha's hand. Out on the water, there was a man standing on the boat. He was holding a shovel and fishing hook. It was a fisherman's ghost. We got so scared that we ran for our lives. That's when I must have dropped the ring. Kritika crossed her arms, her face completely blank. She did not believe a single word about ghosts. So, what you are actually telling me is that all three of you were present at the exact location of the crime right when the murder happened, between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. Kritika pulled a photograph out of her pocket and slid it across the table. It was a picture of Jaya. Do you know who this woman is? Both girls looked at photo and shook their head quickly. No, ma'am, Anisha said. We have never seen her before in our lives. Kritika turned to Vittal. Go up to their resort room. Bring their third friend Pooja down here for the interrogation immediately. Vittal nodded and hurried up to the resort building. When he reached Pooja's room, he knocked loudly on the wooden door. Pooja, this is Officer Vittal from the CIB. Open the door. There was no answer, only dead silence. Vittal knocked again, harder this time. Pooja, open up! He placed his ear against the door. He couldn't hear any movement, but he could hear a faint, strange sound, like a faucet dropping. Chilling feeling crawled up his spine. He grabbed the doorknob and turned it, but it was locked from the inside. Realizing something was terribly wrong, Vittal stepped back, lowered his shoulder, and threw his entire weight against the door. Crack! The lock broke and the door swung open. Vittal stepped into the room, and the sight before his eyes made him freeze in absolute horror. Pooja was lying flat on the bed. Her eyes were tightly closed, but the white bedsheet around her were stained with a massive, expanding pool of deep red blood. Striking straight out of her stomach was a sharp kitchen knife. She was dead. Vittal's hand shook as he pulled out his phone and dialed Kritika. Boss, You need to get up to room 204 right now. The psychic, her prediction came true. Within 2 minutes, Kritika and Tapan came rushing into the room. Kritika immediately snapped on her pair of rubber hand gloves. First Jaya on the beach, and now this girl in her room? Kritika muttered, looking around the crime scene. What is the connection between these two murders? Tapan walked around the bed, his sharp eyes examining the floor. The room was complete disaster. A glass vase was shattered on the ground, chairs were overturned, and the curtains were partially ripped down. Look at this mess, Tapan pointed out, his voice serious. This wasn't a quick attack. Pooja put up a massive fight. She struggled with the killer before she died. As Kritika knelt down near the fallen nightstand, her eyes caught something small hidden under the edge of the table. She reached under and pulled out a small sealed plastic packet filled with white powder. It was a packet of illegal drugs. Seeing the drugs, a realization flashed in Tapan's mind. He quietly stepped out of the room and hurried back to the restaurant where Atul was guarding Divya and Manisha. Tapan put on a worried face and walked up to Atul. Hey, Atul, Agent Krutika found some major evidence upstairs. She needs you up in the room right now to help document it. Go quickly. I'll keep eye on the girls. Okay. Thank you, detective, Atul said, rushing off toward the elevator. Once Atul was gone, Tapan turned to Divya and Manisha. He leaned in closer and whispered, did you girls find any strange packets on the beach last night? The girls gasped, looking terrified. How did you know? When we were inside that scary beach washroom, we found a small plastic packet on the floor. We were already drunk and we we thought maybe it would be fun to try it. But we got too scared and we never opened it. We brought it back to the room. One's expression turned very serious. Now listen to me carefully. Agent Kritika is incredibly strict. If she finds out you girls are connected to drugs, she will throw you in jail instantly. If she asks you about anything found in the room, do not say a single word. Just tell her you want a lawyer. Do you understand? Okay, okay. Divya snobbed, nodding rapidly. But we need to call Pooja and tell her the same thing. She's still up in the room. Tapan looked down at the floor for a long moment. The silence between them grew heavy. He didn't know how to break the terrible news to them. After a quiet pause, Tapan looked back up into their eyes. Pooja is no longer with us. Divya froze. What? What do you mean? What happened to her? She was murdered, Tapan said softly. While you two were out on the beach searching for your ring, someone entered in your room and killed her. A sharp gasp escaped Manisha's mouth. Divya covered her face with her hands, and both girls burst into loud, agonizing tears, collapsing against each other in grief. A few moments later, Kritika walked out of the resort building, her face hardened by the grim reality of the case. She looked at weeping girls and then at Tapan. Take them to the CIB headquarters, Kritika ordered. The game has changed. We are dealing with a serial killer. Inside the cold walls of CIB quarters, the air was thick with tension. Divya and Manisha were led down the long hallway, their eyes red from crying. From inside the nearby holding room, the psychic stood by the window. She pulled the plastic blinds down slightly with her fingers, peering out. The moment she saw the two girls walking past, she gasped and stood up in a hurry. Her eyes widened. She could feel a strange, heavy energy radiating from them. The dark puzzle was growing more dangerous. In the main interrogation room, Agent Kritika slammed the small plastic packet of white powder onto the table. We found this hidden in your resort room, Kritika said, her voice sharp. Can you explain this? Are you a regular consumer of illegal drugs? Divya stared down at the floor, completely frozen. She was too devastated by Pooja's brutal murder to even speak. Seeing her silence, Kritika's anger flared. Answer me, she demanded. Manisha swallowed the lump in her throat, remembering Detective Tapan's secret warning from earlier. She gathered all her courage. We we want lawyer, she said quietly. Kritika leaned in closer, narrowing her eyes. Listen to me carefully. If you do not cooperate with the CIB right now, I will hand you both over to the narcotics department. Your lives will be ruined. Manisha panicked. She was caught between Kritika's terrifying threat and Tapan's strict advice. Confused and shaking, she darted her eyes over to Tapan, who was standing quietly in the corner of the room. Tapan gave her a subtle, reassuring nod. We want lawyer, Manisha repeated, her voice firm this time. Suddenly, Tapan walked over, pulled out a chair, and sat down right next to two girls. He looked up at Kritika and spoke calmly. I am their lawyer. Kritika stared at him in absolute shock. The room went completely silent. While Tapan was a licensed advocate, since his brother murder, he had been working with CIB to solve high profile cases. What? Kritika snapped, disbelieving. You can't do that, Tapan. You work with the CIB. I help CIB. Tapan corrected her smoothly, a confident look in his eyes. I do not work for them. Just because I spend my time assisting the CIB doesn't mean my law firm stops running. I am an independent advocate, Kritika, and right now these two girls are my clients. The two girls looked at Tapan, their jaws dropping in surprise. They had no idea he was going to take such a massive risk for them. Kritika tapped her finger on the drug packet. Fine, we found this inside their room. What is your defense? My clients have absolutely no idea what that is, Tapan replied without missing a beat. The resort room was a total mess. It is highly possible that the real killer left that packet behind or planted it there to misguide your team. Where did you get it? Kritika pushed, glaring at the girls. If you don't start talking, I can arrest you both for murder of your friend. Tapan slammed his hand lightly on the table, standing up. My clients were in CIB custody at the restaurant when Pooja was killed. They have a flawless alibi, and as an agent of law, you know that threatening suspects to force an answer is strictly illegal. Kritika's jaws tightened. She stopped questioning, took a deep breath, and pointed toward the hallway. Tapan, outside, now. Tapan calmly followed her out of the room, shutting the heavy door behind him. The moment they were in the hallway, Kritika exploded. What are you doing? What is this ridiculous stunt? Look, promise me you won't file an official charge sheet against them yet, Tapan said, lowering his voice. If you promise me that, I will tell you exactly what happened. No, I cannot promise you that, Kritika said fiercely. I have to follow strict legal procedures. You are actively disturbing the CIB homicide investigation. Kritika, just think about it, Tapan reasoned, keeping his voice steady. Do those two terrified girls look capable of brutal knife murder? Look at them. Kritika paused, glancing through the glass window at the weeping girls. She let out a frustrated sigh. Fine, tell me. They found that packet on the floor of the abandoned beach washroom last night, Tapan explained. They were drunk. They got curious and they foolishly brought it back to their room, but they never used it. A sharp, victorious smile crossed Kritika's face, though her eyes were still angry. Thank you, Advocate Tapan Thite. You just admitted that the drug packet belonged to your clients. Come on, Kritika, Tapan groaned. Without another word, Kritika turned and marched into her cabin. Tapan followed her inside. Closing the door, she sat down heavily at the desk and immediately began sorting through paperwork, trying to ignore him. Listen to me, Kritika, Tapan said, stepping closer to her desk. Try to understand. These are young girls. They have their whole futures ahead of them. One of them is about to get married. Her wedding will be completely called off if this goes to the narcotics department. The punishment doesn't fit the mistake. The court will decide their punishment, not me, Krutika said coldly, not looking up from her papers. As a lawyer, you know, my only job is to collect evidence. Then look at the bigger picture, Tapan argued, his eyes flashing with excitement. They found those drugs in the beach washroom. There is something deeply wrong with that resort. Why did the security cameras mysteriously go dark last night after 8 p.m.? Think about it. Someone inside that resort is running a major smuggling operation. Kritika stopped writing. Tapan's words hit a nerve. She sat in silence, contemplating the possibility. We need to keep a close watch on that beach tonight, Tapan said. We will do the stakeout tonight. Kritika agreed slowly. But I am not releasing those girls. That's fine, Tapan nodded. Honestly, they are much safer inside the CIB holding cell than back at that resort. Suddenly, Kritika's phone rang loudly. It was Officer Vittal, who was still managing the crime scene at the resort along with Atul. She picked up immediately. Speak to me, Vittal. Ma'am, we just finished a thorough check of the main corridor CCTV footage, Vittal said. During the exact time that Divya and Manisha left the room to find the ring, absolutely no one entered or exited their resort room. Kritika's eyes widened. She slowly looked up at Tapan. Understood. The forensic team will be there shortly to move Pooja's body, Kritika commanded. One of you go straight to the restricted beach area and hide. Wait for my signal. I will be there soon. She cut the call and stared at Tapan with a mixture of anger and dread. That was Vittal, Kritika said. He checked the cameras. No one entered that room after the two girls left. Tapan, do you know what that means? It means no outsider could have done it. Those two girls might have murdered their own friend before they ever come down to the beach. Tapan's face grew dead serious, but he shook his head. Let's not jump to conclusions just yet. Something is missing. I need to examine that murder room with my own eyes. Krutika grabbed her jacket from the chair. Fine, let's go back to the resort. The night air was thick and heavy when Tapan and Krutika reached the resort again. The beach was dark, lit only by the distant, pale moonlight. Krutika pulled her jacket tight around herself and gave Tapan a serious look. I'm going to join Vittal and Atul for the watch on the restricted beach area, she said. Be careful inside. You too, Tapan replied. While Krutika disappeared into the dark shadow of the shore, Tapan walked back to the resort building. He went straight to the girls' room. Room 104. The yellow tape across the broken door fluttered in the breeze. Inside the room was empty and completely silent, but the maze from the struggle still remained. Tapan didn't look at the bed. Instead, he walked slowly across the room, his eyes scanning the floor. He remembered Victor's words. No one entered or left this room through the main hallway. Tapan reached the back of the room and stopped. The glass balcony door were unlocked, swinging open slightly in the wind. He stepped out onto the balcony and looked around. The balcony of room 104 was dangerously close to the balconies next to it. A sharp smile crossed Tapan's face. The hallway camera didn't see the killer, he thought, because the killer never used the hallway. They came from the balcony. Tapan immediately left the room and hurried down to the bright marble lobby. The receptionist looked tired and stressed, but she straightened up when Tapan approached the desk. Excuse me, Tapan said, leaning against the counter. I need some information about the guests staying next to the victims. Who checked into room 103 and room 104? The receptionist quickly typed on her computer, her eyes scanning the screen. Let me check, sir. Room 103 has been empty all weekend, but room 105 had a guest. What's their name? Tapan asked. A man named Ashish Bakla, she replied. Then she frowned, looking closely at the screen. Actually, that is very strange now that I look at it. Tapan leaned closer. What is strange? Well, Mr. Ashish originally checked into a luxury room on the third floor 2 days ago, the receptionist explained, pointing at the screen. But this afternoon, right after the news about the beach murder spread, he came down here. He was very angry and insisted on moving to room 105 immediately. He wouldn't take any other room. One's eyes narrowed. He demanded the room right next to the girls. And where is he now? He checked out just a little while ago, sir, the receptionist said, looking worried. He left the resort in a big hurry. One tapped his fingers on the desk. This was the breakthrough he was looking for. Ashish moved next to the girls right after Jaya's murder, and now Pooja was dead and he was gone. I need a favor, Tapan said firmly. Print out a copy of the ID card Ashish Bakla used to check in. Of course, sir. Just a moment, the receptionist said. She clicked a few buttons and took a print. She handed Tapan a piece of paper showing a photo of sharp-jawed man with a serious eyes. One stared at the photo of Ashish Bakla. The puzzle was finally coming together, and a dangerous new suspect had just entered the game. Under the cover of complete darkness, the clock struck 2 a.m. Agent Krutika, Officer Vittal, and Officer Atul lay flat in the sand, hiding near the restricted beach area. The night was dead silent until the faint sound of motor echoed across the water. A small, dark boat pulled up to the shore. Two men stepped out of the boat. One of them was carrying a heavy burlap sack over his shoulder. Without speaking a word, they walked quickly away from the water and entered a dense, spooky coconut tree farm nearby. The CIB team followed them into the trees, moving like shadows. But the crunching of dried leaves gave them away. The two men suddenly stopped, realizing they were being followed. They whipped out their guns and spun out. Before they could aim, the CIB team stepped out with their weapons drawn. Kritika's voice sliced through the dark. CIB, drop your guns! In a flash of panic, the man carrying the heavy sack threw it with a full force straight at Kritika's chest. The heavy bag knocked her off balance, sending her crashing into the dirt. Catch them! Kritika screamed from the ground. But the Vittal was already moving. Before Kritika could even finish her sentence, the veteran officer took off into the trees like a bullet. Atul scrambled right behind him. As the suspect sprinted through the dark farm, Vittal stopped for a split second, raised his gun, and aimed carefully. His shot hit one of the suspects cleanly in the leg. The man roared in pain and collapsed into the grass. Vittal didn't even slow down. He kept running with full force, chasing the second man through the dense tree. Within seconds, Vittal closed the gap, threw his weight forward, and tackled the suspect hard to the ground, pinning his arms back. By the time Atul finally caught up, he was completely out of the breath, clutching his chest. Vittal calmly dragged both suspects back to where Kritika was standing. Good job, team, Kritika said, dusting the dirt off her jacket. Not team, boss, Atul panted, taking long, desperate breaths. Vittal sir captured both of them entirely on his own. He looked at the older officer in absolute amazement. What do you even eat, sir? At your age, you are running faster than me, and your aim is completely perfect. Vittal gave a tough, sharp smile. Not my first rodeo, boy. The CIP team immediately ripped open the thrown sack. Inside, they found dozens of bricks of highly expensive illegal drugs. Vittal and Atul wasted no time. After a few sharp, aggressive slaps, the terrified suspects cracked and began to confess everything. We just deliver it, one of the men yelled, trembling. The manager of the resort is the one running the whole smuggling operation here. The team rushed back toward the resort to catch him, but the manager had already been tipped off. When they reached the house near the edge of the property, they saw him speeding away on a two-wheeler, a large duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Vittal looked over at Atul and grinned. I guess the race isn't over yet. Vittal jumped into the driver's seat of the CIB car, started the engine, and hit the gas. They rolled down the road after the escaping manager. The manager looked back, saw the lights, and twisted the throttle, raising his speed to the dangerous level. The chase grew intense. The road began to twist and turn, becoming narrower and narrower. Vittal struggled to keep up because the car was too wide for the light paths, while the manager's bike could slide through easily. It looked like he was going to get away, but as the manager sped toward the major crossroads, another car unexpectedly roared into the intersection from the side, slamming it on its brakes and completely blocking the path. It was Tapan's car. Kritika, who had teamed up with Tapan to cut off the escape route, leaned out of the passenger window and pointed her gun directly at the manager's face. Stop right there, she ordered. The manager panicked. He hit the brakes too hard and tires skidded wildly on the loose gravel, and he lost complete control of the two-wheeler. The bike flipped and the manager went flying, crashing heavily onto the hard ground. Before he could even try to stand, Atul and Kritika jumped out of their vehicles, pinned him to the dirt, and snapped the heavy metal handcuffs on his wrist. The resort manager was finally caught. Inside the CIB interrogation room, the resort manager sat beneath the harsh overhead light, sweat dripping down his face. Officer Vittal leaned against a table, staring him down with a cold, unyielding gaze. Behind the two-way mirror, Agent Kritika and Tapan watched the interrogation closely, listening to every word through the audio feed. All right, let's start from the beginning, Vittal demanded, slamming his notebook onto the table. Tell me exactly how you run the drugs through that beach. The manager cracked instantly, burying his face in his hand. It was all through the sea, sir. We use the restricted area of the beach because it's completely isolated. I came up with the fisherman's ghost story myself. I needed something terrifying enough to keep the local villagers and noisy tourists far away from the shore whenever our boats landed. Whittle leaned in closer. And what about the security cameras? We controlled them from the main office, the manager confessed. Every time the smuggling boat was scheduled to arrive, we turned the cameras near the restricted area completely off. Then we spread rumors that the fisherman's spirit caused a supernatural blackout. It worked perfectly. Nobody ever questioned it. And what happened the night Jaya was murdered? Vittal asked, his eyes narrowing. A shipment was supposed to arrive around 9 p.m., the manager explained, but the heavy winds picked up out at sea and the boat had to be postponed. We tried to contact our men on the water to tell them to abort because your CIB team was starting to patrol the area, but we couldn't reach them. That's why they only ended up landing tonight instead. Vita slammed his hand on the table. If you were controlling the beach that night, why did you murder Jaya and Pooja? I swear to you, sir, I didn't kill anyone, the manager cried out, looking completely terrified. We knew the smuggling boat wasn't coming that night, so absolutely none of our men were anywhere near the beach when Jaya was attacked. The watchman simply forgot to turn the CCTV cameras back on after our plan were cancelled. We were smugglers, sir, not murderers. Vittal stepped out of the interrogation room, joining Kritika and Tapan behind the glass. This is getting incredibly messy, Kritika said, rubbing her temples in frustration. If the smugglers didn't do it, then who killed them? She turned towards Tapan. You went back up to the girls' room while we were setting up the stakeout on the beach. Did you find anything? Tapan smiled smoothly, pulling the folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. A man using the name Ashish Pakla checked into room 105, right next door to the girls. The receptionist told me he was originally staying on the third floor, but this afternoon he threw a massive fit demanding to be moved to that exact room. He checked out in a huge hurry just a little while ago. Kritika snatched the paper, her eyes narrowing as she studied the photocopy. Without losing a second, she walked over to Atul's workstation and dropped the paper right onto his keyboard. Atul, prioritize this, Kritika ordered. Run this ID through the central system immediately. Let's see what comes up. On it, boss, Atul replied, his fingers instantly flying across the keyboard as the CIB database began its search. Vittal came from behind. I don't understand. What is the connection between both victims? They don't seem to have any personal connection to one another, Vittal said, looking through the case file. Tapan, who had been staring silently at the floor, suddenly looked up. Actually, there is a connection. Both Jaya and Pooja were present at the exact same place at the exact same time. Vittal's eyes widened. You mean they saw something they shouldn't have? And the killer silenced them. It has to be the smuggling racket, Kritika insisted, pacing the floor. All the circumstantial evidence points straight back to the resort staff. One walked over to the large green corkboard in the corner of the office, which was covered in crime scene photographs, timelines, and suspect profiles. He drew a red circle around the manager's photo. If the manager had killed Jaya, he wouldn't have left the body exposed on the sand, Tapan argued, tapping on the board. It would have been incredibly easy for a boat smuggler to weigh her body down and throw it deep into the sea. Leaving her there serves no purpose for him. He gains absolutely nothing from Jaya's death. One shifted his focus, tapping his pen against the next picture. Let's look at this from the beginning. First, we have the psychic. She somehow knew about the first murder before it even happened, and she accurately predicted the second one. Kritika stepped up beside him. She also happens to be the flawless alibi for victim's husband, Dev. She pointed out, touching Dev's photograph. Exactly, Tapan agreed. The husband who stands to inherit a massive 100 crore rupee life insurance policy. And then we have the brother, Manoj. Tapan pointed to the next profile. He desperately wanted to sell the family jewelry band, and Jaya was the only one standing in his way. Kritika turned toward Atul. Atul, did you finish checking Manoj's location during the time of the murder? Yes, boss, Atul called out from his computer desk. His mobile network data places him exactly at his house the entire night. Unbelievable, Kritika muttered, crossing her arms. It's impossible to tell who the real killer is among these people. Tapan took the printed copy of the ID card he had gathered from the resort receptionist earlier and pinned it directly to the center of the green board. Don't forget our newest player, Ashish Bakla. He checked into the resort on the exact same day Jaya and Dev arrived. Then, right after Jaya was found dead, he desperately insisted on moving on to room 105, the room right next to the girls. But who exactly is he? Suddenly, a loud alert popped up on Atul's computer screen. Boss, look at this, Atul called out urgently. A red flag just cleared the database. There is an active missing complaint filed for this exact ID card. The real Ashish Bakla had his wallet stolen last week. Kritika walked over to the desk, her face grim, which means someone is operating under the completely stolen identity, pretending to be Ashish Bakla. We can pull up his face from resort lobbies and corridor cameras, Atul said, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he accessed the resort's backup files. After a few moments of scrubbing through the footage, he pointed at the monitor. Boss, look! This is the fake Ashish Bakla going into room 105. Entire team gathered around Atul's screen, leaning in to get a look at the mysterious figure. On the screen, a man could be seen walking briskly down the corridor. However, he was wearing low-beamed cap and thick, dark sunglasses. Because the resort cameras were mounted high up on the ceiling, the angle completely blocked his face from view. Check a different angle, Look at the lobby camera, Kritika ordered. Abdul quickly switched feeds, pulling up three different cameras from entrance, the receptionist desk, and the elevator. In every single shot, the man kept his head tilted down perfectly. His face was entirely hidden. Tapan laid out a low whistle. He is incredibly smart. He didn't just stumble onto this case, he planned every single movement with absolute precision. Victor sank into a nearby chair, looking completely exhausted. Huh, this case is spinning out of control minute by minute. We have too many suspects, a dozen conflicting motives, and now a faceless phantom using a stolen identity. Kritika glanced up at the wall clock. The hands pointed straight to 4 a.m. The entire room fell into a heavy, tired silence. "Huh, I think we have reached a wall for tonight," Kritika said, sighing deeply as she grabbed her jacket. "We have been up for over 24 hours. Let's go home, get some sleep, and look at this with fresh eyes in the morning." The team nodded in silent agreement, shutting down the computers and leaving the CIB headquarters shrouded in darkness. The mystery still completely unresolved. By 8:30 a.m. in the morning, weak sunlight was filtering through the blinds of the CIB headquarters. Tapan walked into the building, carrying a warm paper bag of breakfast, and headed straight to the interrogation room. Inside, Divya and Manisha were fast asleep, their heads resting heavily on the metal table. Tapan pulled out a chair and sat down quietly across from them. For a moment, he just watched them, debating whether he should wake them up or let them rest after the horrifying night they had endured. Suddenly, Divya stared. She slowly lifted her head, her eyes half closed and blurry with sleep. Through her hazy vision, she saw Tapan sitting right in front of her. A soft, dreamlike smile spread across her face. "Tapan," she whispered grozzily, completely convinced that she was in the middle of a beautiful dream. Tapan looked at her, a wide, genuine smile breaking across his face at her pure innocence. He didn't say anything at first, letting her blink away the sleep. Then he playfully waved his hand in front of her face. Divya jolted away, her eyes snapping wide open as she sat up straight. The haze cleared, and the reality hit her. She wasn't dreaming at all. Tapan was actually sitting right there. Flustered, her cheeks flushed a bright pink. Tapan smoothly slid the paper bag across the table. "Brought you some breakfast," he said softly. "Do you girls need anything else?" Divya could barely find her voice, completely flattered by the gesture. No, thank you," she whispered. One gave her one last reassuring nod and walked out of the room. Outside the door, he stopped by a female guard on duty. "Take good care of those two," he instructed quietly before walking down the hall. Inside the room, Divya immediately nudged her friend. "Manisha, wake up! Advocate Tapan was just here. He brought us food." Manisha groaned, rubbing her eyes, but froze when she heard the news. "What? Why didn't you wake me up? I wanted to meet him." "You should have seen him," Divya sighed, staring blankly at the door with a dreamy expression. "He looked so incredibly charming. And that smile? Oh my god!" Manisha rolled her eyes and snatched the fruit bag right out of Divya's hand. "Hello! Wake up, daydreamer. You are getting married in few weeks. You should have woken me up instead." Meanwhile, Tapan walked down to the holding area where Psychic was being kept. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, and leaned in close to whisper a highly confidential plan. The psychic listened intently, her mysterious eyes scanning his face. After a tense moment, a sharp smile crossed her lips. She nodded in complete agreement. Leaving her room, Tapan pulled out his phone and made a series of quick, decisive calls. Please be there, he commanded firmly to the person on the other end. One by one, the rest of the CIB team trickled into the main office, looking exhausted but determined. Agent Kritika dropped her jacket onto the chair and clapped her hands together. All right, let's get back to work. Atul, pull up the resort's archival footage again. The fake Ashish Bakla lived at the resort for 2 whole days before moving rooms. He couldn't have hidden his face from every single camera for 48 hours. We will find a clear shot of him. No need to waste your time on those old tapes, Tapan interrupted, walking in with his hands casually slipped into his pockets. I have already solved the case. Grab your jackets and we are going to the resort. Ritika stopped and stared at him, rolling her eyes. Ah, here we go. The dramatic show off begins. It's not show off, Kritika, Tapan said as he stood up. It's called style. Oh, and we are taking that psychic with us. I need her for my plan. Kritika's jaw dropped. Are you insane? Don't tell me we are going to rely on psychic to close a double homicide investigation. He's still a prime suspect. Sometimes you had to take a big risk to catch a brilliant killer, Tapan said smoothly, already walking toward the exit. He paused at the door and looked back over his shoulder. Hurry up! We have already called everyone involved and told them to assemble on the restricted beach. You really don't want to be late for the final show? Kritika laid out a long, defeated sigh, looking at Vittal and Atul, who were already grinning. Fine, Kritika muttered. Let's go. The CIB team arrived with Tapan and Psychic at Restricted Beach. On the sand, a complex ritual space had already been arranged. Incense burned softly, and a circle of dark stones marked the center of the shore. Agent Kritika crossed her arms, looking at the step up with deep skepticism. So, what exactly is the plan here, Tapan? Why don't you just take a seat and enjoy the show, Agent Kritika? Tapan replied with a confident grin. Kritika let out a heavy sigh and pulled a chair short distance away, watching as the psychic began preparing for a ritual. A few minutes later, the remaining key players arrived. Jaya's grieving husband Dev, her brother Manoj, and her mother Sudha. A small crowd of curious onlookers from resort gathered at the edge of the police line, murmuring in hushed tones. Tapan smoothly walked over to the family to greet them. Thank you for coming. This psychic possesses an extraordinary, terrifying gift. Everything she has predicted so far has come to pass. Jaya's mother Sudha kept her head down, visibly hesitant to speak. Behind her stood Manoj, his eyes locked onto his smartphone, his thumbs typing furiously. Pulling the photocopy of the identity card from his pocket, Tapan held up directly in front of Sudha and Manoj. Do either of you recognize this man? His name is Ashish Bakla and he is currently our prime suspect. Tapan watched their faces, observing their expression. Hearing the name, Manoj's thumb instantly froze. He stopped typing and looked up, staring intently at the photocopy. I don't know him, Sudha said, her voice shaking. Dev and Manoj both looked at the photo and shook their heads in agreement. Well, since we are at the standstill, I'm planning to have the psychic call upon Jaya's spirit directly, Tapan announced, looking around the group. We will ask her who killed her. Would you like to join the circle, Mrs. Sudha? Manoj scoffed, stepping forward defensively. Isn't this bit ridiculous? Does the CIB actually believe in this supernatural garbage? Oh, I don't belong to CIB, Tapan replied smoothly. I just help them solve cases. But here is a quick piece of free advice. Join the session. Otherwise, Agent Kritika over there is going to start looking at you as a suspect. He turned back toward the circle. Shall we begin? The psychic sat cross legged in the center of the stone, Her eyes closed as she fell into a deep rhythmic trance. The crowd grew dead silent. Suddenly, her breathing shifted, turning cold and ragged. She is here, the psychic whispered, her voice echoing strangely over the crashing waves. She is crying. She wants to speak to her husband, Tapan mentioned to Dev. Step forward, Dev. Sit in front of her. Dev hesitated, his hands trembling as he sat down on the sand. She is saying she loves you, the psychic muttered, her head tilting unnaturally. She is so sorry for not listening to you that night. Hearing those words, Tapan broke down, burying his face in hands as tears streamed down his face. The psychic shuddered, her eyes rolling back slightly as she entered a deep state. Now she wants to speak to her mother. Tapan gently tapped their shoulder, signaling him to step back, and guided Sudha to the front of the circle. She is saying, Ma, I love you, the psychic chanted. Sudha instantly began to weep, clutching her chest. She says, I miss you every single day, Ma. I always felt so protected in your arms. I know you would have saved me from every evil thing in this world if you could have. Sudha grasped, sobbing loudly. The psychic's voice grew sharper and more intense. But it is not too late, Ma. I know you will give me justice. Right, Ma? You are with me. You love me, don't you? Stop it! Stop it! Sudha suddenly screamed, slamming her hands over her ears. Please, make it stop! Manoj rushed forward, glaring angrily at Tapan as he grabbed his mother's arm. She has severe low blood pressure. What kind of sick games are you playing, mister? We are leaving. Manoj tried to lift his mother up. Let's go, Ma. With sudden burst of hidden strength, Sudha violently threw Manoj's hand off her shoulder. She pointed a trembling, tear-stained finger right at his face. He killed my daughter, Sudha said. The entire beach went dead silent. Manoj froze, his face draining of all color. He stared at his mother in absolute shock for the fraction of a second, and then he bolted, sprinting toward the tree line. But Officer Vittal was already positioned, anticipating the move. Vittal lunged forward, tackled Manoj hard into the sand, and quickly pinned his arms behind his back, clicking the handcuffs into place. I knew something was wrong the moment he came home that night. Sudha cried out, collapsing into Kritika's arm as the agent rushed over to comfort her. When he returned from the business, I checked his laundry bag and found a crumpled cash receipt from this exact resort. And then, the very next morning, they called us with the news that Jaya was dead. My own son! He murdered her! With the mystery unraveled, the crowd dispersed, and Manoj was led away in the back of the CIB vehicle. Tapan walked over to the psychic, who was calmly packing away her ritual items. Thank you, Tapan said quietly. Your performance was perfect, and you were right. The killer did strike again. One of the young girls was brutally attacked and killed in her room. The psychic paused, looking deeply saddened by the news. She closed her eyes and murmured a quiet prayer toward the sky. Ritika walked over. We are releasing you from the custody right now, but you are legally barred from leaving the district. We may call you back for formal statements. I will be more than happy to help, Agent, the psychic said, offering a warm, knowing smile before turning to walk down the shoreline. After a few steps, she stopped. She turned around, her dark eyes looking directly onto Kritika. Tell me, Agent, The psychic said, when a person you love most in this world dies completely unexpectedly, how do you find closure? The love you feel for them doesn't just vanish into the air just because they are no longer in this world. What are you supposed to do with all the leftover feeling? Without waiting for an answer, she turned and continued walking down the beach until she vanished into the bright horizon. Kritika stood entirely frozen, her jaw slightly tight. Slowly, her eyes welded up with a thin layer of tears. Tapan stepped up beside her, noticing the sudden vulnerability. He gently patted her shoulder. Kritika quickly blinked away the moisture, took a deep breath, and shook her head with a faint nod. It's nothing. Let's get back to the office. The psychic's words had struck a chord deep inside Kritika's soul, a painful memory from her past that she wasn't ready to share with Tapan. Inside the CIB office, Manoj sat heavily in the interrogation chair. The arrogance he had shown on the beach was entirely gone, replaced by the hollow stare of a caught man. With the evidence piling up and his mother's devastating accusation echoing in his ears, he finally broke down and confessed. I had to do it, Manoj whispered. I wanted to sell the family jewelry company. It was a massive deal, but Jaya's new business plans were working out too well. Because of that, Ma was planning to transfer 80% of company shares to her. If that happened, I would have been left with nothing. He looked up at the ceiling, a bitter smile crossing his lips. From there, I found out that they were planning a weekend staycation. I was the one who suddenly suggested this exact resort to him. I planned everything. I checked into resort using a stolen ID under the name of Ashish Pakla. I wore a fake beard, a mustache, a low cap, and a dark sunglasses so none of the staff or camera would recognize me. Manoj swallowed hard, staring at his hands. That night I cornered Jaya on the restricted beach. I killed her with the heavy shovel I found inside one of the docked boats. I thought I was completely in clear, but just I was about to slip away, I saw lights of the old beach washroom snap on. The room was dead silent as CIB team listened to the details. I crept over to the washroom to see who was inside. Manoj continued. The two girls saw my shadow against the glass, panicked, and ran for their lives. But when they fled, I noticed a smartphone sitting on the tripod stand. My heart stopped. I realized their video camera had been recording the entire time and it had captured my face perfectly when I walked into the restricted zone. He shook his head in frustration. I tracked them back to the resort. I realized that it was Pooja's phone that had captured my face. I used the balcony of room 105 to slip into their room when they were down on the beach. I just wanted to steal the phone and destroy the video evidence. But the third girl, Pooja, she woke up. She saw me. She started fighting back and screaming. So I grabbed a knife from the counter and I had to silence her. Agent Kritika stepped forward, her expressions completely hardened. Manoj, you're officially being charged with the first degree murder of Jaya and Pooja. Manoj didn't even flinch at the words. Instead, he turned his hollow eyes toward Tapan, who was leaning quietly against the back wall. Just tell me one thing, Manoj muttered. How did you figure it out? I covered every single track. Tapan walked over to the table, looking down at him. The day Jaya's body was found, your mother fainted from shock. You rushed into the restaurant area and brought a glass of lemonade within seconds. But you didn't stop to ask any staff member where the kitchen was, and you didn't look around for a beverage station. You walked straight to it. That was my first clue. You had already spent 2 days navigating the resort under fake name. Upon leaned in closer. And when you handed the glass to your mother, Sudhaji instantly refused to drink from your hand. Her maternal instinct subconsciously knew what her mind couldn't accept yet. But the moment Dev took the glass and insisted, she drank it. Your own mother was terrified of you, Manoj. Ritika and Tapan walked out of the interrogation room, leaving the guards to process the prisoner. Well, that's another case closed, Kritika said, letting out long breath. A brother brutally killing his own sister for money? Unbelievable. Tapan didn't respond. He kept his eyes fixed on the floor, his face completely blank. The mention of brother's death hit a nerve far too deep, opening a wound that had never truly healed. I'm going to call it a day, Tapan said quietly, his voice devoid of his usual playful energy. Kritika nodded understandingly. She walked down to the holding cells to officially release Divya and Manisha with a stern legal warning about the narcotics. The moment the doors opened, the girls looked around eagerly, instantly asking for Tapan. But he was already long gone, disappearing into the city streets. Late that night, the city of Mumbai was quiet. Tapan sat alone on his dark balcony, the half empty bottle of liquid resting on the table beside him. The cool night air did nothing to soothe the burning guilt inside his chest. As he looked out over the distant city lights, his mind drifted back to the worst day of his life. His own brother had been brutally murdered, and every single day, Tapan carried a crushing weight of that blame on his own shoulder. The man who had killed his brother was the ruthless son of powerful politician Gopal Rao. Before that monster had ever touched Tapan's family, he had been facing separate murder charges. Back then, Tapan had been a brilliant, ambitious defense attorney. He had taken the politician's son as a client, fought brilliantly in court, and successfully cleared him of all charges. The very man Tapan had saved from the prison cell using his legal genius was the exact person who walked free and ended up murdering Tapan's brother. A heavy, agonizing sadness settled into his chest. Tapan poured another drink, staring into the amber liquid. No matter how many cases he solved, no matter how much alcohol he consumed to numb the pain, the guilt remained completely untouched. He sat alone in the dark, lifting the glass to his lips, and continued to drink silently until the first ray of dawn broke across the horizon. The relentless humid morning of Mumbai brought a heavy haze over the CIB headquarters. Tapan walked through the glass door much later than usual, his eyes tired from sleepless nights, but his posture still radiating his signature quiet confidence. When he went to his desk, he noticed a neatly wrapped gift box sitting onto his table. Those two beach party girls came by early today, Atul said, leaning over his cubicle with smirk. They left that specially for you. Tapan opened the box. Inside lay an elegant premium silk tie. Resting on top of it was a handwritten thank you note and a beautiful invitation card to Divya's upcoming wedding. A genuine wide smile broke across his face, a brief flash of light after a long night of darkness. Holding the gift, Tapan walked down the corridor and stepped into Kritika's private cabin. Thank you for releasing them, Tapan said, leaning against the door frame. Kritika looked up from the files. Her expression softened slightly. You were right. They are just young kids with their entire lives ahead of them. There was no point in ruining their future over a stupid mistake. Tapan smiled, holding up the silk tie and the wedding card. Look what they left behind. Kritika's eyes locked onto the tie, and a sudden wave of warmth and melancholy washing over her face. My father used to have a massive collection of ties just like that, she said softly, her voice carrying a rare vulnerability. Recognizing the shift in her tone, Tapan quietly took a seat across from her desk, prepared to listen. He passed away when I was quite young, Kritika continued. My mother was completely devastated by the sudden shock. She couldn't handle the grief. In her desperation, she started visiting a local psychic who claimed he could channel my father's spirit from the afterlife. She ended up wasting our entire family savings on those lies before I realized what was happening. Tapan reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. Not everyone is as emotionally strong as you, Kritika. Before the quiet moment could linger, Kritika's desk phone rang sharply, shattering the silence. She snapped back into the professional persona and answered it. As the voice on the other hand spoke, she abruptly stood up, her face draining of color. She slammed the receiver down and looked at Tapan in absolute shock. You remember when Vijay ran? He ran with his right hand Lala and his personal driver. Our field units just tracked down the driver's son Keshav and his wife. Kritika continued rapidly. Keshav claims he was out of town on business, but our team is bringing him into the interrogation room right now. A high pitched deafening whistle started ringing into Tapan's ears. His hands balled into tight fists. Through the reinforced glass of interrogation room, Tapan watched as the CIB escort led Keshav inside. Keshav was heavily built, with a broad shoulders and towering frame that could easily terrify an ordinary person. He sat down heavily, staring blankly ahead. Atul stepped inside to begin the questioning, while Kritika stopped near the doorway to introduce a new officer standing beside Tapan. Tapan, this is Officer Deva, Kritika said. His specialized team handles all our high tech surveillance and tracking operations. She then turned to Deva. And this is Advocate Tapan. He is an independent counsel helping our team with a legal strategy and active investigation. Deva extended a hand, giving Tapan a firm, professional handshake. Let's get the procedure started, Kritika said, signaling the team to step inside the room. Atul leaned across the metal table, looking up at the imposing man. When was the last time you saw your father, Keshav? About 6 months ago, Keshav replied, his voice deep and completely flat. I don't remember the exact date. Where have you been hiding until now? Atul pushed. I wasn't hiding. I was at my family's hometown in Nashik, taking care of some personal work. Atul leaned in closer, dropping his voice. Your father is formally accused of hand-boring a fugitive and aiding Vijay in brutal murder of Rajan Thite. Are you telling me you haven't had any contact with him? No, Keshav said firmly. I have no idea where he is. Then why didn't you file a missing persons report when he disappeared with Vijay? Because I didn't want to know, Keshav snapped, his anger finally breaking through his stoic mask. He's your biological father, Keshav, Atul countered. Don't you care whether he lives or dies? No, I don't, Keshav said, returning to cold, expressionless stare. I told him 1,000 times to stop working as a servant for that politician Gopal Rao. He never listened to me. Instead, he used his influence to force me to work inside Gopal Rao's corporate firm. My father looks at that politician like he is some kind of benevolent god. But nothing comes for free from these politicians. They force people like my father to commit horrifying sins in the dark while they wear pristine white clothes and play God in front of people. I want absolutely no part in his sins anymore. Atul quickly glanced at recording device, ensuring the statement was logged. Sins? What exact kind of criminal activities is Gopal Rao involved in? Keshav laid out dry, humorless chuckle. The exact kind of filth your department is investigating right now.
Look, officer, if I knew where my father or Vijay were hiding, I would tell you just to get them out of my life. But Koparao is not a fool. He knows I hate his family. He would never let me know their location. The team stepped out of the interrogation room, leaving Keshav under the watch of the guards. I think we need to apply some real physical force, Atul muttered. He's hiding something. A few hours in dark cell will make him talk. I highly doubt he has any real information. Deva intervened, shaking his head. Koparao is handling this escape personally. He is keeping the circle incredibly small. Finding his son Vijay is going to take a lot more than roughing up a family member. Worst yet, Keshav technically works for Gopal primary firm. Kritika added, her legal caution kicking in. If we lay a single finger on him without a concrete proof, a politician will call the ministry. They will freeze our entire investigation before sunset. Tapan turned on Kritika, his eyes blazing with a dangerous impatience. So what? We just sit on our hands and do nothing? Kritika, at the very least, use your network to find out if Vijay has managed to flee the country. I have a better strategy, Deva assured Tapan, maintaining his calm composure. We release Keshav immediately, but we place a tight trail on him. My team will be watching him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The moment his father attempts to make contact with the family, we swoop in and arrest the entire circle. Kritika nodded in agreement. The surveillance trap is our best shot. Set it up, Deva. Though Tapan's face remained dark with the frustration, he knew Deva's logic was good. Eventually, he agreed to Deva's plan.